From the world of AV programming and control with James King, I'm Steve Greenblatt, and this is Ask the Programmer. James, how are you today? I'm glad we're back for another great episode and looking forward to speaking with you.
I'm doing great, Steve, and yeah, always great when we can connect and talk about programming. How are you doing?
Very good, very good. Yeah, I agree with you. It's nice that we can continue to carry on these conversations. And one of the things that we're pleased to share today is that we have a listener who's joining us from our LinkedIn group on for Ask the Programmer, and his name is John Smith, and he's a AV solutions programmer at New Era Technology. Welcome, John.
Well, no, happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us. What we like to talk about a little bit is what your background is in AV and what brought you to being an AV programmer, because AV programmers come in all different shapes and sizes. So we kind of like to share a little bit about each person out there.
Okay, so I started in the low voltage industry about 10 years ago. So from there I did everything in that industry from access control to fire alarm, but then start we company I worked for, we do some AV and it it piqued my interest. So that's kind of where I was able to steer from there. So I started doing the AV probably 8 or 9 years ago now. Um, and then just on the install side. Um, and then from there took an interest in the control programming. It was always kind of my end goal was to do the programming side. I've always had an interest in the control side. And I used to make jokes that it was always my end goal was to become a certified programmer with Crestron, just because people always talked about that was the hardest thing to do in the programming side. But now that I've done it, I don't necessarily agree with that. But um, it was but that was always kind of my goal. So I come from the integration side, but now I just do the programming and then help out the installers when they need it. But doesn't happen very often anymore. But that's my background. So.
Excellent. So what were some of the things that you've had to learn or change in going from more of the install side to the programming side? Was that a big shift for you, or is that just a natural progression?
It was a bit of a shift. Kind of when I was in the field, you just tend to think of things differently than from the control side. I mean, you don't necessarily think of the big picture as much, right? You're more of trying to get this display on the wall or get this rack wired or that kind of thing. So moving into the programming, having to think of the whole big picture from the beginning to the end and kind of like what the customer wanted and that kind of stuff. It took a little while to get used to. But I think it was a good change. And I was doing some programming when I was still in the field. And I think once I kind of understood that the, the big picture is what really mattered, it helped with the install side and I was able to help train some of my fellow technicians to think of it that way. And I think it helped the install quality be better and everything. But I don't know. It's I guess it was a mindset thing, and that's pretty much all it was. But yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I've always thought that that's a great progression. But I have was what you just described was something that was brought to my attention and when I talked to others about it, and it's always been an argument as to, where do you find your next wave of AV programmers? Do you groom them from? Would you recommend it coming from that side?
Yeah, I think so. It's there's a level of knowledge that comes from the field that I mean it can be taught to somebody that only knows the programming. Like you can pull a computer science major, right, and teach them AV. It's just as easy, but there's AV is so nuanced that I think people being in the field, it really helps um, give that foundation, and and it translates well, I think.
What are your thoughts, James? Is have you seen that be a successful recipe, or do you think that there's more challenges to it?
I definitely think there's more challenges to it. I'm a I'm a believer that, knowing programming is a little easier to learn the AV side of things than to know the AV side of things and learn programming. But that was because that's the path I took. Um, the saying is, yeah, you got to know both. I really think what John hit is knowing it holistically. As a programmer, you got to see the whole system and making sure you're meeting the user's needs. Where like a lot of times installers are just, looking at what they're installing. And then you also have computer science majors who will come in and, oh, I'm just writing code. I don't need to know anything else. So it's really a holistic view that needs to be done.
John, I like what you said too about being able to help the fellow technicians understand the bigger picture. Um, do you think that that's something that that they've taken to and that has allowed them to be able to do their job better, or was it just a matter of you guys being able to relate more effectively?
I like to think that it helped. I mean, a lot of the people that I worked with when I was in the field are still around, right? They're still the installers that I work with regularly. So, I mean, a lot of times I think it took, and I think it helped. But like I said, I like to think it did, but I guess I don't really
Sure.
know.
Yeah. I mean, having a good rapport with people in the field as a programmer is a huge asset.
Yep.
Do you work still at job sites, or do you work more remotely?
I do. I do. Do still go to the job site. So one of the things that we do at New Era is we do what we call large venue. So we do stadiums, and like just large facilities in general. So a lot of times I'll go on site for those, but then our like day-to-day conference rooms, that kind of stuff, it technician goes to site and I load remotely. And then I'll come out and help commission or whatever if I need to. But it's really just depends on the job. But
Very good. It's that's obviously depends on the situation that you're in, like you said, and how much do you feel what when you are on site, how do you tend to have to direct people and be the one that is doing leading the troubleshooting, or are you just kind of a member of a team at that point?
really it depends who the installer is. Like we have some people that have been around for a long time that have been doing it for a long time, and I can just kind of be there to help those people. But the people that are a little bit newer, I have to kind of point and say this is what I think it might be, and maybe let them figure it out so they can learn from it. But it really, as everything in this industry, it just depends.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Um, what are some tips that you would have for people that are looking to get into programming?
Don't be afraid to fail. And don't be afraid to try things. Like I know I have worked behind some other programmers that they only would ever do things one way. And like I know that doing something one time or whatever may cause problems later, but I mean, it helps you learn, right? And helps you learn what's most efficient and what helps. And, uh, And I don't know, I feel like it's really important to be willing to try things and to be willing to fail. And if something doesn't work out, you'll find out real quick when the customer's calling to complain, right? So, but
Do you have a good example to share that maybe like a memorable learning experience?
Um, I don't off the top of my head. I wish I could. It's probably, I know it's happened so many times,
Sure.
but it's,
You're,
I can't think of one.
you're talking James language, though. This is a big thing that he has in terms of a motto. That's the only way that you're learning is by failing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like to say, you know, you fail. I kind of go with either a win or a learn. Um, to me, a failure is, you know, you didn't grow from the experience and you're repeating the same mistakes over and over. That's a failure. Um, but yeah, just because you made a mistake, cool. Do you learn from it? Do you grow from it? And how do you improve?
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think that some of the most challenging times that I can remember, I still remember them. And I say you're building your knowledge database and you're gonna go back to that and recall it because you want to be because you learned so much from it. But I couldn't agree more that that you have to be able to push yourself, and growth comes from your mistakes. Well, you mentioned earlier that being a Crestron certified programmer was really like what people looked at as being the pinnacle or an end goal. What now that you've accomplished it, what are some things that you're looking to achieve?
Um, that's kind of a funny question because I'm asking myself the same thing pretty much every day. Because there's always something to learn, right? And I mean, the latest one was that QSC, the big exam thing they did. That was, I mean, first of all, that was an awesome test. I know you guys had Jeff on, and that was an awesome test that they did, and a great certification that I recommend to everybody. And and I mean, just continuing on with Crestron. I mean, Crestron's really my bread and butter. It's what we do the most. So it's what I enjoy the most. So, and there's always more to learn with it, right? There's the simple sharp stuff and all that stuff that makes everything just completely different than the simple windows and all that stuff. So I think that's probably my next step is going fully simple sharp. But
So do you are you one of a team of programmers, or are you uh, do you end up having to do a lot on your own?
so I do the way that we operate is we have it's myself and three other programmers. I do I do all of the Indiana area, and then we have a couple of guys out in we have a Westchester office that does kind of the East Coast, and they do that side, and we work together sometimes on some stuff, but it's mainly a programmer gets assigned to a project and they run with it. So
So what are some ways that you've been able to evolve with that being said? Because we often talk about programmers being a little isolated, and if
yeah.
you don't have other people that you work alongside of or that you're collaborating with, it's hard to find resources to learn from.
Yeah. The leadership at my company, they've done a good job of making sure that we all are able to communicate and share resources and that kind of stuff. So I don't think there's any isolation. Like if we don't talk every day or whatever, but I feel like there is a way for us to talk. So I think that helps. Um, One of the other programmers is in the office that I work out of, so we work together in the field, and now we're both the programmers. So I mean, we know each other. So that I think that definitely helps. But the guys in the other office we don't talk to nearly as much. But they, if we ever need anything or they ever need anything, they get a hold of us, and it's there's always that communication. So
Hmm. James, we've talked a lot about certifications over time, and we kind of weigh the the value of them at times, and it sounds to me like John's amassed a number of certifications, which is certainly I would never take that away from anybody. But what are some suggestions that you have for him for growth and career opportunities?
Oof, that's a good question. Just I would say kind of what going back to what John mentioned is don't be afraid. And that is putting yourself out there. You know, um, especially as programmers, we tend to be a little more behind the shadows, behind the scenes, quiet folks. And then no one really knows the work we're doing. They don't understand the struggles sometimes or even the benefit of it. So putting yourself out there would probably be the best advice I could give anyone is just, hit the social medias, hit podcasts like this, get out there, join communities, put your name out there. Because as a good friend, it says, a closed mouth doesn't get fed.
Yeah, I would add to that too. Try to dabble with stuff and experiment and James says very often that he takes it, finds a pet project, and that's how he learns. So if you're looking to get into advanced programming languages and so forth, start writing something on your own and seeing how you can incorporate it. But it can be tough because we all know how busy programmers are, and we also know that it's depends on the environment that you're in, whether there's opportunities to be able to do things in different ways.
Yeah. And to add to that on the pet project one thing I don't know if I ever mentioned or stressed this, but when you're doing a pet project and stuff, find ways to break it. Like, I've had a project on my desk right now that I've been kind of dabbling in. And, we assume if a user hit a button, it's going to wait for its process. People don't all the time. So I've actually, I'll hit multiple buttons as it's processing to see, does it break the system? Because sure enough, users will find some weird way to do things to break your system. So try to break it.
Think that's a great opportunity. Plus, also, I know once you get it working, save it and start trying to add to it and do some things in different ways, and see where that leads to. You could always rewind and go back to where you were.
Yep.
Um, John, anything else that would be maybe a learning lesson or something you'd want to share from your journey becoming a programmer?
Um, the only other thing that I can think of is if it's something that somebody wants to do, don't let people try to talk you out of it. Um, it's it's uh it's a lot of fun, and people might try to scare you away from it, and I mean, I know I sure had people trying to scare me away from it, but it was just always kind of my goal. So I stuck with it, and I would suggest other people do the same if they want to.
That's excellent. Great tip and probably a good way for us to wrap up this episode. And we'll have you back to continue on another topic and have more of a conversation with you. But until then, John, how can people get in touch with you? How can they learn more about what you may be up to and or get in touch with New Era Technology?
So people can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn under Jonathan Smith because that's my legal name. Because people don't believe that my name is John Smith. And they can find New Era on LinkedIn. We have offices all over the world. So that's just the easiest way.
Excellent. And as I said before, John's in the Ask the Programmer group on LinkedIn, so you can find him there as well. And all he did was raise his hand and say, "Hey, I'd be willing to be a guest." And that's a good example of putting yourself out there. So thanks for doing so, and it's great to get to know you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
James, any closing thoughts, and how can people get in touch with you and continue the conversation?
No, this was great information from John, and thank you for coming on and saying that you'll be willing to be a guest and sharing your experience with us. If anyone wants to get a hold of me, you Google me, you'll find me.
Fantastic. And for me, you can reach me at Steve Greenblatt on social platforms. LinkedIn is where I'm most active and where I think a lot of great conversations are being had in the AV industry these days. My company, Control Concepts, is a supporter of this podcast, and we build some of the components that programmers use to integrate devices or to add functionality to their system. You can find more about that at controlconcepts.net. If you are listening to this podcast, you can also catch us on a video form on YouTube. And if you are watching us on YouTube, you can take us with you in your favorite podcast player. Either way, leave us a rating, review, share your favorite episode. We'd really like to hear from you. And we just recently posted that we've passed 250 episodes, and we're 5 years into this and enjoying it, and want to continue to make sure that we can include members of our community and also talk about the things that are important to AV programmers and those who find AV programming important. Uh, so LinkedIn group is a great place to connect with us, and we'd like to hear from you, and also raise your hand if you're interested in being a guest. So until next time, this has been Ask the Programmer.